Welcome, dear friend, as we settle into another quiet moment together. It is a blessing to have you here once again. Tonight, you are invited to gently receive 25 Zen stories, soft teachings that carry ancient wisdom for deep rest and inner stillness. These lessons have guided seekers for many centuries, offering a path back to peace when the mind feels restless and the heart feels tired. If you wish, you may silently notice the time where you are and the place from which you are listening, allowing yourself to arrive fully in this moment. What I am about to share is a carefully gathered collection of subtle insights, passed down through generations of awakened teachers. Each story holds a quiet truth, one that can slowly change how you relate to worry, mental noise, and the endless turning of thoughts that so often keep us awake at night. These are not stories meant to entertain or distract. They are living teachings, preserved because they point toward something essential. They remind us that true rest does not come from forcing silence upon the world, but from understanding the movements of our own mind. The Buddha gently reminded us that peace arises from within and cannot be found by searching outwardly. Tonight, you will begin to sense what this timeless truth means for your own journey into deep rest. As we move through these teachings together, something subtle may begin to unfold. The weight you have been carrying can soften. The restless energy within the body can begin to settle. Thoughts may slow, like leaves drifting to the ground after a long wind. So allow yourself now to sink a little deeper. Let the body be held by whatever supports you. Take one slow, mindful breath with me. And as you gently release it, know that you are opening yourself to wisdom that has patiently waited to guide you back to yourself. We begin with a story that reveals a truth underlying all experience. This is the teaching of the meditation student and the quiet reminder. There once was a young student who had devoted several months to meditation practice with sincere effort. Each morning and evening, he sat upon his cushion, closed his eyes, and followed the breathing instructions given by his teacher. Some days felt calm and natural. Yet recently, his practice seemed filled with distraction and discomfort. One morning in particular, he could barely remain seated for more than a few minutes before frustration overwhelmed him. His thoughts rushed endlessly, concerns about work, relationships, and many small, unimportant matters. His legs ached in unfamiliar positions. And no matter how hard he tried to stay with his breath, his attention was constantly pulled away by restless thoughts and sensations. After what felt like a very long time, though it was likely only a short while, he abandoned his practice and went to find his teacher. He discovered the elderly monk quietly tending a small garden behind the meditation hall, gently removing weeds in the soft morning light. With a heavy voice filled with self-judgment, the student spoke. "Teacher," he said, "my meditation is terrible. I cannot focus at all. My mind feels scattered and restless. My body aches, and when it does not ache, I grow sleepy. Everything about my practice feels wrong. It is truly awful." The teacher looked up, earth still resting on his weathered hands. His eyes met the student's frustration with calm familiarity. He listened without surprise, as though he had heard these same words many times before. Then he simply said, "It will pass," and returned to his gardening as if nothing unusual had occurred. The student stood there, unsettled by the simplicity of the response. He had expected advice, perhaps a new method, or at least encouragement. Instead, he received only 3 quiet words. With nothing more to say, he returned to his room and reflected on this puzzling guidance. In the days that followed, he continued his practice despite his doubts. Gradually, something shifted. The distractions softened. His body adapted to stillness. Moments of genuine peace began to appear between waves of thought. By the end of the week, his meditation felt transformed. Filled with relief and excitement, he sought out his teacher again. This time, the monk was sweeping fallen leaves in the temple courtyard. The student's face shone as he spoke. "Teacher," he said joyfully, "my meditation is wonderful now. I feel clear, peaceful, and deeply alive. My body is at ease, my mind is calm, and beautiful states arise effortlessly. Everything feels perfect." The teacher paused, looked at him with the same gentle expression as before, and replied, "It will pass." This time, the student understood. His excitement softened into quiet insight. He saw that the teacher was not speaking only about meditation, but about all experience. As the Buddha taught, all things that arise will also fade. This teaching points us toward the impermanent nature of every condition, pleasant or painful, desired or avoided. Much of our suffering comes from resisting this truth. We struggle to hold on to what feels good and to escape what feels uncomfortable. In doing so, we exhaust ourselves. The student's difficult meditation and his joyful meditation were both temporary. The teacher's response pointed beyond changing experiences towards something deeper, the steady presence of awareness itself. Not stability through unchanging conditions, but stability in the space where all conditions arise and dissolve. As you reflect on your own life, notice how much energy is spent trying to maintain good moods or resist difficult ones. Both grasping and avoidance create tension. Zen practice gently cultivates equanimity, a balanced presence that remains steady regardless of circumstances. "It will pass" carries both comfort and wisdom. It reassures us during hardship and humbles us during joy. We can fully engage with life while holding it lightly, knowing change is inevitable. The Buddha reminded us that all conditioned things are impermanent, inviting us to live with care and awareness. When we remember this, success and failure lose their power to disturb our peace. We discover a quiet freedom that does not depend on circumstances. As you rest here tonight, noticing sensations, thoughts, or emotions, pleasant or unpleasant, can you remember this simple truth? Can you allow each experience to be just as it is, knowing it will gently pass? The taste of this teaching is the taste of liberation. Not freedom from change, but freedom within it. Let us now continue our journey with a story about maintaining balance, no matter what arises. This is the teaching of Master Hakuin and the power of quiet acceptance. Surely, many believed that an innocent man would have defended himself more fiercely. Yet the silence of Master Hakuin only fueled the rumors. The story spread quickly through the village, growing heavier with each telling. Those who once honored him as a living example of virtue now whispered behind closed doors, calling him a fraud, a man who had deceived them all along. His reputation collapsed almost overnight. Former students turned away in disappointment, and familiar faces passed him without acknowledgement. When the child was finally born, the young woman's parents brought the infant straight to Hakuin. Their hearts were hardened by anger and shame. "This child is yours now," they said bitterly. "If you are the father, then you must bear the responsibility." Without hesitation, they placed the baby in his arms and left, abandoning him to face the consequences of an act he had never committed. Once again, Hakwin simply responded, "Is that so?" He offered no defense, no explanation. He accepted the child with the same calm presence he brought to all things. For many months, the former master cared for the infant with gentle devotion. He fed the child, cleaned and comforted him, and walked the floor through long, sleepless nights. He offered the baby warmth, patience, and quiet love. Neighbors who once brought offerings now avoided him or spoke of him with contempt. He had lost his status, his livelihood, and the respect of the community. Yet none of this altered the care he gave. His actions remained steady, peaceful, and kind. Meanwhile, the young woman struggled beneath the weight of her deception. Each day, she watched an innocent man suffer silently for her lie. Seeing him care so lovingly for a child that was not his became unbearable. Guilt filled her waking moments and haunted her sleep. At last, she could endure it no longer. She confessed everything to her parents, revealing the true father, a young man she had tried to protect. Horrified by what they had done, her parents hurried to Hakwin's simple dwelling. They bowed deeply, their voices trembling with remorse. "Master, we have wronged you," they said. "Our daughter has spoken the truth. You are not the father. We see now how unjustly you have suffered. Please forgive us and allow us to take the child back." Hakwin listened quietly, with the same calm he had shown when they accused him. Gently, he placed the baby into their waiting arms. And with no trace of bitterness, he spoke the same words he had offered from the beginning. "Is that so?" The Buddha taught that hatred is never ended by hatred, but only by love. This truth lives quietly within this story. Hakwin's strength did not come from resistance, but from inner balance. He did not allow praise or blame to determine his peace. Zen Buddhism reminds us that true freedom arises from an unshakable center within, a place that remains steady whether we are admired or condemned, understood or misunderstood. Hakwin's simple response was not indifference. It was profound non-attachment to reputation, to status, even to being seen as right. Most of us would react very differently. We would rush to defend ourselves, to correct the story, to demand justice. Yet Hakwin shows another way, a way where peace does not depend on how the world treats us, a way where dignity and compassion remain intact even in the face of injustice. The Buddha warned that we are not punished for our anger, but by our anger. Hakwin was spared this added suffering. He did not carry resentment, nor cling to self-pity. Though the situation was painful, he did not deepen the pain by resisting it inwardly. As you rest here tonight, gently reflect on your own responses to criticism or misunderstanding. How much of your suffering comes from events themselves, and how much from the way the mind reacts to them? Between what happens and how you respond, there is space. In that space, peace becomes possible. Remember Master Hakwin's quiet words. Is that so? Let them soften your heart. Let them protect your inner stillness. As we continue this journey through Zen wisdom, we now turn to a teaching about the temporary nature of all possessions and roles. This is the story of the inn that called itself a palace. Long ago, in ancient India, a respected spiritual teacher wandered from village to village, sharing the Buddha's teachings with anyone who wished to listen. His reputation for clarity and compassion spread far and wide, reaching even the ears of kings. One day, he arrived in the capital of a great kingdom, where a magnificent palace rose above the city like a crown of stone and light. The palace shimmered with marble and precious gems. Gardens overflowed with flowers and fountains. Guards stood watch in gleaming armor. It was clearly the dwelling of immense wealth and power. The teacher approached with the same quiet dignity he offered to all, whether meeting royalty or beggars. He was welcomed without resistance and walked through halls adorned with silk and gold, until he reached the throne room. There, the king sat elevated above the marble floor, surrounded by courtiers dressed in finery. The king looked upon the teacher and spoke directly. "What do you seek?" The teacher bowed gently and replied, "Your Majesty, I ask for a place to sleep in this inn." A ripple of surprise passed through the room. The king frowned in confusion. "This is no inn," he said. "This is my palace, the seat of my kingdom." The teacher nodded calmly. "And who lived here before you?" he asked. "My father," the king replied. "And before him?" "My grandfather," the king said, his voice slowing. The teacher paused, letting the silence deepen. Then he spoke softly. "A place where people stay for a time and then move on. Is that not an inn?" The Buddha taught that all conditioned things are impermanent. Nothing we possess, not even our identities, truly belongs to us forever. We reside in our roles and surroundings only briefly before passing them on. As you lie here, notice what you hold tightly. Titles, homes, relationships, even spiritual achievements. Each is precious, yet each is temporary. When we remember this, the heart softens. We learn to care deeply, without clinging. And with this understanding, the mind begins to rest. A Vietnamese Zen master once gently taught that because of impermanence, everything remains possible. This understanding invites us to see change not as something to fear, but as something quietly beautiful. Because nothing lasts forever, suffering can soften into peace. A closed heart can slowly learn to open. Even long-held patterns can shift toward clarity and wisdom. In Zen practice, we learn the art of non-attachment. This is not the absence of care, but the presence of wise care. We learn to love deeply without clinging, to work wholeheartedly without grasping, and to enjoy moments without demanding that they remain unchanged. Non-attachment allows warmth without possession, commitment without rigidity, and joy without fear. The insight of the spiritual teachers dissolves the illusion that we truly own anything. We are all guests passing through the inn of existence, borrowing roles, relationships, and possessions for a short while. This realization can feel unsettling at first, yet when received with understanding, it opens the door to profound freedom. The Buddha reminded us that all things are impermanent and encouraged us to cultivate virtue while the opportunity remains. This teaching does not invite despair. Instead, it encourages us to live wisely, knowing our time here is precious. We are invited to fill our days with kindness, awareness, and compassion rather than anxiety and clinging. Tonight, as you rest in your own temporary dwelling, surrounded by objects that will one day pass on, can you feel the gentle release that comes with this knowing? Can you sense how impermanence might actually deepen gratitude rather than diminish it? The Buddha taught that among all contemplations, reflection on impermanence stands supreme. By remembering the temporary nature of this life, each moment becomes more vivid, more meaningful. Every breath becomes an opportunity to practice love and presence as we continue our journey through Zen wisdom. Now, let us turn to a story about transforming our relationship with suffering. This is the teaching of the salt and the lake. In a quiet monastery among rolling hills lived an elderly master known for his patience and depth of understanding. Among his students was a young apprentice whose heart had grown heavy with complaint. Each morning he arrived carrying fresh grievances. "Master," he would say, "why is life so difficult? Yesterday my meditation was disturbed by noise. Today my back aches from the hard floor. When will this suffering finally end?" The master listened without interruption, day after day. Yet he sensed that words alone could not loosen the student's grip on suffering. One clear morning, as sunlight poured softly through the open doorway, the master made an unusual request. "My friend," he said gently, "please bring me a handful of salt from the kitchen." The apprentice obeyed, returning with coarse white crystals cupped in his hands. The master placed a small glass of water before him. "Put all the salt into this glass," the master said, "and drink." The student hesitated. "That seems like too much salt for such a small glass." "Trust," the master replied quietly. The salt dissolved into the water, turning it cloudy. The apprentice drank and immediately recoiled. "It is unbearably bitter," he said. The master nodded. "But now come with me." They walked together in silence until they reached a vast mountain lake, its surface calm and reflective. The master gestured. "Place the same salt into the lake." The apprentice scattered the crystals into the water, watching them disappear without a trace. "Now drink," the master said. The apprentice cupped the lake water and drank. It was cool and refreshing. "Do you taste the salt?" the master asked. "No," the student replied softly. The master sat beside him and spoke with tenderness. "The pain of life is like salt," he said. "No more, no less. What determines bitterness is the container that holds it. When pain arises," the master continued, "you can become a small glass where every grain overwhelms you. Or you can become a lake vast enough to hold the same pain without being consumed. Do not be a glass," he whispered. "Become a lake." The Buddha taught that pain is unavoidable, but suffering is optional. We cannot remove all difficulties from life, but we can change how we hold them. Our awareness can contract, making each discomfort feel unbearable. Or it can expand, allowing challenges to exist within a wider, gentler space. Meditation, gratitude, and compassion naturally widen this inner landscape. As you rest tonight, notice your current challenges. Can you sense the difference between holding them tightly and allowing them to float in spacious awareness? Impermanence reminds us that nothing stays fixed. Today's struggle becomes tomorrow's memory. And from this spaciousness, suffering becomes a doorway rather than a prison. The Buddha taught that clarity brings peace. Not clarity without pain, but clarity spacious enough to hold it wisely. And so we return once more to a familiar teaching. A young student practices meditation with great effort, encountering distraction, discomfort, and frustration. He brings his complaints to his teacher and hears a simple response: "It will pass." Later, when joy and clarity arise, he returns in excitement. And again he hears the same words: "It will pass." In time, the student understands. Not disappointment, but insight dawns. All experiences, pleasant and painful, are temporary. What remains is awareness itself, the steady space in which all things arise and fade. Zen practice invites us to rest in that space, to care deeply, yet hold lightly, to move through life without being thrown by its changing tides. Tonight, as thoughts and sensations come and go, remember this quiet wisdom. Hold your experience gently. Let it be as it is. Like waves upon the ocean, everything moves and changes. Yet the ocean itself remains. And in this knowing, the heart finally rests. Now, let us gently continue with a story that reveals how heaven and hell are not distant realms, but quiet doorways that open and close within our own hearts. This is the story of the samurai and the unseen gates. Long ago, in the age of feudal Japan, there lived a seasoned warrior named Nobushige. His armor bore the marks of many battles, and his eyes reflected the weariness of a man who had walked closely with death. Though respected for his strength, his heart remained restless, troubled by questions that no victory could answer. Seeking clarity, he traveled to meet the Zen master Hakuin, a teacher known for piercing illusion with compassion disguised as sharpness. When the samurai arrived, he bowed stiffly, his movements heavy with both mettle and pride. "Master," he said, "I have faced death many times. Tell me honestly, is there truly a paradise and a hell awaiting us after this life?" Hakuin lifted his gaze slowly from his tea, studying the man before him with calm attention. Then he spoke, gently but firmly. "And who are you to ask such a question?" "I am a samurai," Nobushige replied, straightening his back. "I serve my lord with honor. I have never fled from battle." At that moment, Hakuin's tone shifted. His words became sharp, almost dismissive. "A protector," he said. "Your face is coarse, your hands rough like a common laborer. What noble lord would trust someone like you?" The words struck deep. Heat rushed to the samurai's face. His breath tightened. His hand moved instinctively to his sword. Hakuin continued, his voice unwavering. "And that sword you carry, are you sure it is even sharp enough to cut? I doubt you could defend anyone at all." Anger surged like fire. The samurai's vision narrowed. His body trembled as steel began to slide from its sheath, the sound slicing through the afternoon air. And then, calmly, clearly, Hakuin spoke. "Here, the gates of hell open." The words cut deeper than any blade. In that instant, the samurai saw himself clearly, consumed by rage, ready to kill over wounded pride. Hell was not beneath the earth or beyond death. It was here. It was now. It was his own mind. His hand froze. Slowly, with reverence, he returned the sword to its sheath and bowed deeply. Then Hakuin spoke again, his voice now soft, filled with warmth. "And here, the gates of paradise open." This is the Buddha's timeless teaching. Hatred is never ended by hatred. It is ended only by love. From this story, we learn that heaven and hell are not places we travel to later. They are states we enter moment by moment. Each breath offers a choice: react unconsciously or awaken gently. How often do we cross these gates without noticing? A careless word, a sudden delay, a feeling of being disrespected, and suddenly, peace collapses into tension. Zen practice teaches us to notice the moment just before the sword is drawn. That moment of awareness is already the opening of paradise. As one Zen master taught, the wise reject their thoughts, not reality. Tonight, if irritation arises, see it gently. Let it pass without grasping. This is how we remain free. And now, we move into another quiet teaching, one that reveals the difference between helping and holding on. This is the story of the two monks at the river. Two monks once walked together along a mountain path toward a distant monastery. Both had taken vows of discipline, including avoiding physical contact with women, not out of disregard, but to protect clarity of mind. They came upon a river, swollen and dangerous. At the edge stood a young woman, uncertain and afraid. "Please," she asked, "can one of you help me cross?" One monk hesitated, his mind filled with rules and fear of breaking them. The other simply saw a human being in danger. Without hesitation, he lifted her gently onto his shoulders and carried her across. When they reached the other side, he set her down, and she thanked them before leaving. They continued walking. Hours passed in silence until the first monk finally spoke, his voice tense. "Brother, how could you carry her? You broke our vows." The other monk looked at him kindly and replied, "I set her down at the river. You are still carrying her." This is the Buddha's wisdom. Holding on to anger is like holding a burning coal. We are the ones who are burned. How often do we carry what is already finished? Conversations long past. Mistakes already learned from. Words that no longer exist except in memory. Zen teaches us to act when action is needed, and then to release. Impermanence is the great teacher. When we let go, we travel lightly. Tonight, notice what you may still be carrying. Ask gently, "Can I set this down now?" And now, let us enter the story of the empty backpack. A young seeker once asked his teacher why his past felt so heavy. The master handed him a backpack and told him to walk through a maze while carrying it. Though empty, it felt unbearably heavy. Inside the maze, walls blocked his way. Only when he chose honesty and forgiveness did openings appear. When he looked inside the pack, he saw it was empty, yet the weight remained. A voice whispered, "The weight is within you." As he forgave, the pack grew lighter. When he released resentment, he began to rise. The teaching is clear: we create our own burdens. Forgiveness is not forgetting. It is choosing freedom. As you rest tonight, ask yourself, what weight can I release? And finally, we arrive at a story of fearlessness and compassion. One evening, Zen master Shikiri Kojin sat quietly reciting sutras when a thief burst into his home, sword drawn. "Money or your life?" the man demanded. The master did not look up. "Please," he said calmly, "do not disturb my practice." And here, dear listener, we will continue in the next breath as the night deepens and the mind grows still. If you need money, please help yourself. It is in that drawer over there. With a gentle gesture, the master pointed toward a small wooden chest, then calmly returned to his chanting, as though nothing unusual had happened at all. The thief stood frozen, his sword still raised, his mind unable to make sense of what he was witnessing. In all his years of stealing, he had never encountered such a response. There was no fear, no anger, no resistance. Only quiet generosity, offered as naturally as one might offer a cup of tea. Still confused, yet compelled to act, the thief lowered his weapon and moved toward the drawer. He gathered the coins and small valuables inside while, behind him, the master's voice continued to flow softly through the room, steady and undisturbed, like water over smooth stones. As the thief turned to leave, believing the strange encounter was finally over, the master spoke again. "Please wait," he said gently, lifting his eyes for the first time. "Do not take everything. I will need some of that money to pay my taxes tomorrow." Leave a little for me if you would." The thief stared, astonished. Here was a man calmly negotiating his own robbery, not with fear, but with simple honesty. Almost without realizing it, the thief returned some of the money to the drawer. He turned once more toward the door, when the master's voice reached him again. "You have taken my money," Shikiri said softly, "and you did not thank me. That is rather impolite, don't you think?" At this, something inside the thief collapsed. His hand trembled, his breath caught in his chest. Never had violence unsettled him so deeply. He bowed awkwardly, words stumbling from his lips. "Thank you," he whispered, before fleeing into the night. Later, when the thief was captured and brought before the court, Shikiri was summoned to testify. The officials expected anger, accusation, a demand for punishment. Instead, the master spoke with the same calm clarity as before. "This man did not steal from me," he said. "I gave him the money freely, and he thanked me for it." Hearing these words, something opened within the thief's heart. Tears arose, not from shame or fear, but from recognition. For the first time, he had encountered love without conditions. After his release, the former thief sought out the master and asked to become his student. Under patient guidance, he learned to cultivate the same fearless compassion that had transformed his life. In time, through steady practice and deep sincerity, he awakened to lasting peace. As the Buddha taught, hatred does not cease by hatred, but only by love. This is the eternal law. This story reveals the quiet power of meeting aggression with peace, of responding to taking with giving, of answering fear with love. When force is met with force, suffering multiplies. But when fear is met with compassion, transformation becomes possible. Consider your own life. When faced with anger or criticism, what arises first within you? Notice the tightening, the defenses, the urge to protect or withdraw. Does this bring peace, or does it deepen conflict? Zen teaches what is called the courage of defenselessness, not weakness, but profound strength rooted in understanding. Shikiri did not deny danger. He saw clearly that violence arises from suffering, not from evil. By refusing to create an enemy, he allowed another human being to awaken. Tonight, as you encounter moments of tension, remember this quiet teaching. Between stimulus and response, there is space. And in that space, choice lives. And now, let us continue with a story about resistance and flow. In a mountain village, where a swift river carved its way through ancient stone, there lived an old Taoist sage. He often walked beside the water, observing how the current shaped the rocks without struggle. The villagers sensed that he understood something deep about life's movement. One afternoon, heavy rain swelled the river into a violent rush, surging toward a great waterfall that plunged into a rocky gorge below. As the old man walked along the bank, the earth beneath him collapsed, and he was swept into the torrent. The villagers cried out in horror, running along the shore as he was carried helplessly toward the falls. There was nothing they could do. When he vanished over the edge, they believed his life was surely lost. But when the waters calmed, they hurried downstream, and there, to their amazement, the old man emerged unharmed. He walked calmly from the river, sat down, and rested as peacefully as if nothing extraordinary had occurred. "How did you survive?" they asked in wonder. The old man smiled gently. "I did not fight the water," he said. "I became it. When it went down, I went down. When it turned, I turned. I allowed myself to move as it moved. This is the wisdom of flow. Life cannot always be controlled, but it can be met with openness. Resistance exhausts us. Acceptance carries us through. As the Buddha taught, all things are changing. Nothing remains fixed. Tonight, as your breath slows and your body softens, allow yourself to flow. Let go of resistance. Rest in the gentle movement of awareness itself. And in this quiet surrender, may you find peace. It was not an accident, nor mere luck. It arose from understanding something essential about the nature of existence itself. When we align ourselves with the natural flow of events, instead of demanding that life obey our personal preferences, hidden paths begin to reveal themselves. What resistance conceals, acceptance gently uncovers. Consider your own relationship with difficulty. How much energy is spent pushing against circumstances that refuse to change? The old man's teaching offers a different way, not passive surrender, but conscious adaptation. A way of flowing that preserves our inner values while moving with shifting conditions. The old man did not abandon his wish to survive. He simply changed how he survived. Instead of opposing the water's strength, he cooperated with it. Instead of resisting its direction, he allowed it to carry him, all the while remaining aware, present, and intentional. So it is in our relationships, our work, and our personal challenges. We may try to force outcomes, control others, or bend reality to our will. Or we may learn to work skillfully with what is already here, discovering that accommodation often leads us where force cannot. A Zen master once said, "Water is soft and yielding, yet it wears away the hardest stone." What appears weak may carry immense strength when guided by wisdom. The Buddha taught that hatred does not cease by hatred, but only by love. This truth applies not only to anger, but to all forms of resistance. Look gently at a present source of stress in your life. Where are you trying to force the river to change its course? What might happen if, instead, you learned how to swim with it? Tonight, as you meet the currents of daily life, unexpected changes, difficult encounters, moments beyond your control, remember the old man at the waterfall. Maintain your center, even as you move with what cannot be changed. Sometimes the most direct path forward is not through the obstacle, but around it. As the Buddha reminded us, in the end only three things truly matter: how well we have lived, how well we have loved, and how well we have learned to let go. To flow with life is to release the need to control everything, while keeping the capacity to respond with wisdom. Like water, we can be gentle and powerful at the same time. Now, let us turn to a story about acceptance and the quiet art of contentment. Along a dusty mountain road, where wildflowers dotted the hillsides, a tired traveler met a shepherd watching over his flock. The sky was uncertain, clouds drifting slowly, promising either rain or heat. The shepherd sat calmly on a stone, his presence steady, his expression serene. "Good morning," the traveler called. "What kind of weather will we have today?" The shepherd smiled softly. "The kind I like," he replied. The traveler paused, puzzled. "And how do you know that?" he asked. The shepherd looked up at the sky and answered with gentle certainty, "Because I have learned that I cannot always get what I like. So I have learned to like what I get." The traveler stood in silence as the meaning settled within him. Here was a freedom no forecast could offer, freedom from the anxiety of uncertainty. The Buddha taught that attachment is the root of suffering. Contentment does not arise from controlling conditions, but from transforming our relationship to them. When we fight reality, we create inner conflict. When we align with it, peace becomes possible. How much energy is spent each day resisting traffic, weather, people, outcomes? Each resistance creates a small tightening within us. Over time, these tightenings become dissatisfaction. Acceptance does not mean passivity. We may still prefer sunshine to rain, success to failure, but we hold these preferences lightly. Our peace does not depend on their fulfillment. A Zen teaching says, "The great way is easy for those who have no preferences." This does not mean having no desires, but not turning desires into demands. Tonight, reflect gently on where you argue with reality. What if contentment is not waiting for something to change, but available now through a shift in seeing? And now, let us continue with a story about the phantoms created by the mind. A man lived happily with his beloved wife for many years. When she fell gravely ill, fear filled her final days. Clutching his hand, she begged him to promise that he would never love another. Bound by grief, he agreed. After her death, he lived alone, honoring his vow. But time softened sorrow, and life slowly returned. He met another woman, and love arose again. When they became engaged, terror struck. Each night, his dead wife appeared, accusing him, recounting every detail of his new relationship. His fear grew unbearable. Desperate, he sought a Zen master, who listened calmly and then smiled. "This is a very clever ghost," the master said. "Tonight, ask her one question." That night, when the ghost appeared, the man followed the instruction. Holding a fistful of beans, he asked, "If you know everything, tell me how many beans are in my hand." The ghost fell silent. Her form wavered, uncertainty spreading across her face. Slowly, she faded away and never returned. This story teaches us that fear gains power only when unquestioned. When we look directly at our thoughts, illusions dissolve. Tonight, as your mind quiets, allow your fears to soften. See them clearly. Let them pass like mist at dawn. And in this gentle awareness, rest. "I cannot," she whispered. And then, like morning mist gently touched by sunlight, she slowly dissolved into the air and was gone. The ghost never appeared again. From that night onward, the man was free, able at last to live his life in quiet peace. The wisdom of the Buddha reminds us that we become what we think. Everything we experience arises from thought. With our thoughts, we shape the world we inhabit. The deeper teaching in this story reveals how powerfully the mind can create experiences that feel utterly real, born from nothing more than guilt, fear, and unresolved emotion. And so we may ask gently, why do we grant such authority to the ghosts our own minds create? Zen Buddhism teaches that much of our suffering does not come from the outside world, but from the phantoms we construct through habitual patterns of thinking. The ghost in this story was not an external being at all, but the man's own guilt and conditioning projected outward and given form by a troubled mind. Reflect quietly on your own life. How often are you visited by inner voices that seem to know everything about you, voices that judge your choices, recall your mistakes, and remind you of promises you believe you have broken? These inner critics often borrow the voices of the past, parents, teachers, former companions. Yet their power comes entirely from within. The ghost could repeat the man's conversations perfectly because it was his own memory replaying them. It knew his private moments because it arose from his own awareness. It appeared most vividly when guilt was strongest, because guilt was the very substance from which it was formed. The ghost felt real in its effects, yet it had no independent existence. In Zen practice, we learn to see clearly the difference between what is truly present and what the mind adds to the moment. The man's love for another was real. His wife was truly gone. But his unexamined grief and guilt kept her alive in his thoughts. The master's guidance was simple, yet profound. By asking the ghost to know something that existed only in the present, something even the man himself could not know, the illusion was revealed. The beans in his hand were unknown until they were counted. No memory, no fear, no projection could supply that knowledge. Zen teacher Charlotte Joko Beck once said, "Thoughts are just thoughts. They are not necessarily true. They are not necessarily important. And they are not necessarily yours." The accusations felt real, but they were only thoughts and emotions shaped by the mind. As you rest now, look gently within. What ghosts still speak with impossible certainty about your worth, your future, your capacity for love? Often these voices claim knowledge they cannot possibly possess. What others think of you, what will happen if you change, whether you deserve peace. The Buddha taught, the mind is everything. What you think, you become. When we see that our experience is shaped by the stories we tell ourselves, we also discover the quiet power to question them. Tonight, as familiar thoughts of doubt or fear arise, remember the man holding the beans. Can you ask these inner voices to prove their knowing? Can you see that the thoughts which claim to know everything actually know very little? As the Buddha advised, question all things. Find your own light. The ghosts that trouble us lose their strength the moment we stop believing in them, when we recognize them not as visitors from beyond, but as creations of the mind, able to fade as softly as they arose. Now, let us move gently into another teaching, one about patience, wisdom, and the subtle paradox of urgent seeking. This is the story of the one-eyed student. In a quiet valley surrounded by blooming cherry trees, a young man heard of a renowned Zen master whose students were said to awaken through sincere practice. Filled with ambition and longing for transformation, the seeker traveled many days to reach the monastery. His heart burned with urgency, his mind fixed on attaining enlightenment as quickly as possible. When he arrived, weary from the road yet glowing with determination, he asked to meet the master at once. The old teacher received him in a simple room overlooking a garden, where monks moved slowly among vegetables and flowers, their actions calm and unhurried. "Master," the young man said, bowing deeply, "I have come to study Zen with total dedication. I am prepared to work harder than anyone before me. If I apply myself with absolute effort, how long will it take me to realize Zen?" The master sat silently for a moment, observing the tension in the young man's body, the urgency in his eyes. At last, he replied gently, 10 years. The student was startled. 10 years felt impossibly long. "But master," he said eagerly, "what if I work extremely hard? If I meditate longer, study more, practice with greater intensity, how long then?" The master reflected, then said calmly, 20 years. The student grew confused and uneasy. "But master," he insisted, "you do not understand how serious I am. If I devote every waking moment, push beyond all limits, how long would it take then?" 30 years, the master answered without pause. The student could no longer hide his frustration. None of this made sense. "Why?" he asked. "Does it take longer the harder I try?" The master's gaze softened. "When one eye is fixed on the goal," he said quietly, "only one eye remains to see the path." Ancient wisdom tells us that a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. From this story arises a deep teaching about spiritual growth and the hidden obstacle of striving. When the mind clings too tightly to attainment, it divides itself. And when attention is divided, we cannot fully inhabit the present moment, the only place where awakening gently unfolds. Rest now in that understanding and allow the path to carry you one peaceful step at a time. Think gently of learning to play a musical instrument. If half of your practice is spent worrying about the day you will be skilled enough to perform before others, then that energy is no longer available for the quiet attention required for each note. Fingers must learn where to rest. Rhythm must be felt rather than forced. Tone must be listened to with patience. Music is born from complete presence in the relationship between hands and instrument, not from anxious thoughts about future mastery. In the same way, Zen speaks of what is called the gaining mind. This is the subtle grasping that turns spiritual practice into a kind of transaction. We meditate in order to gain enlightenment. We read sacred texts to collect wisdom. We practice compassion so we might become better versions of ourselves. Without noticing, we approach the path as consumers, not as participants. And in doing so, we create a quiet division between who we believe we are now and who we imagine we must become. The Buddha offered a simple yet profound reminder: what you are seeking is already present in the place from which you seek. These words point directly to the heart of the Master's teaching. Zen is not something we acquire one day in the future. It is something we recognize, moment by moment. It is not a destination waiting at the end of the path, but the very awareness with which each step is taken. This wisdom helps us understand why urgent spiritual striving often works against itself. When we rush toward enlightenment, we are quietly assuming that our present experience is somehow lacking. Yet Zen teaches that the seeking mind itself is the awareness we are hoping to discover. Look softly into your own life. Have your deepest insights not often arisen when you were not searching for them at all? Perhaps while walking beneath trees, washing dishes, or sitting quietly without any goal in mind. These moments of natural clarity reveal what the Master was pointing toward. Wisdom appears when we stop pulling our attention apart, between here and there, now and later. Zen Master Huangbo taught, "The ordinary mind is the way." This teaching invites us to reflect on how we practice. Are we practicing in order to become someone else, or to recognize who we already are? Are we walking the path to arrive somewhere different, or slowly discovering that the path itself is complete? The student's misunderstanding was not his wish to awaken, but his belief that awakening existed somewhere outside his present experience. Each time he promised to work harder, he unknowingly moved further from the simple awareness that practice reveals. It is like trying to catch your own shadow by running faster. The more urgently you chase it, the farther it seems to slip away. In Zen, we cultivate what is called just sitting. Meditation without bargaining, without agenda, without dividing attention between effort and outcome. This does not mean becoming careless or uncommitted. Rather, it means offering full presence to each moment, allowing understanding to arise naturally instead of forcing it through strain. You may notice how this teaching applies beyond meditation. In relationships, trying too hard to be loved often creates distance, while relaxed presence invites closeness. In creative work, forcing inspiration usually leads to tension, while gentle attention allows creativity to flow on its own. Tonight, as your mind drifts toward imagined destinations, the person you wish to become, the peace you hope to find, the answers you long to hold, remember the Master's words. Gently return both eyes to the path beneath your feet. You may discover that what you believed waited at the end has been present in every step all along. The Buddha expressed this truth simply: there is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path. When we walk with undivided awareness, we realize that nothing essential is missing. Now, let us turn quietly to another story. This is the tale of a young monk who believed he had failed on the spiritual path. It is known as the story of the Golden Wake. At a peaceful monastery overlooking a still mountain lake, a young student sat alone on the temple steps as the sun slowly descended toward the water. His shoulders were heavy with disappointment, and his eyes reflected a quiet sorrow. For many months, he had struggled with his studies, unable to grasp the teachings that seemed to come so easily to others. "The boat is coming to take me home," he said softly to his teacher, who had approached and sat beside him without a sound. "I have failed here. What can I say to my family? They sent me with such hope. They believed I would return as a learned monk, able to guide others." The old teacher looked out across the lake, where a small wooden boat was gliding slowly over the glassy surface. The setting sun painted the water in shades of gold and amber. "Tell them that you did your best," he said gently. "That is all anyone can truly do." "But I wanted to be a great monk," the boy replied, his voice thick with longing. "I dreamed of teaching others, of leading meditation, of making a difference." "You still can," the teacher answered quietly. "How?" the boy asked, confused and discouraged. "I could not even memorize the sutras. I fell asleep during meditation. I failed at everything that mattered." The teacher smiled and pointed toward the lake. "Come," he said. "Let me show you. Do you see that boat crossing the water as the sun sets behind it?" "Yes," the boy replied. "Do you see the wake spreading out behind it?" the teacher continued. "Notice how the boat forms the tip of a golden shape, while the ripples widen and travel outward. That boat is you, leaving the monastery. The lake is your life, and the wake is the effect you will have on the world. Each ripple touches another, and then another, far beyond what the eye can see. Rest with that image now, as the water grows still and the light softens, carrying you gently toward sleep. By choosing, moment after moment, to live with as much wisdom and kindness as you are able, you silently teach the path of love simply by being who you are. Without words, without instruction, your life itself becomes the teaching. A few of those you touch will carry that example forward, passing it gently into other lives. In this way, the widening golden wake of wholesome actions gives rise to yet more goodness, flowing outward beyond what you can see. Most importantly, notice how each ripple catches the sunlight and reflects it upward again. Nothing is lost. Each movement returns light to the sky. The boy watched quietly as the small boat continued across the lake. Just as his teacher described, the wake formed an ever-expanding triangle of light upon the water. Each delicate wave held the golden glow for a brief moment, then released it back into the vastness above. Wonder filled his heart. "Would you come home with me?" the boy asked softly, hope beginning to warm his voice. "And explain this to my father?" The Buddha reminds us that a candle loses nothing by lighting another candle. The deeper teaching here is simple and profound. Influence does not spread through grand achievements or perfect understanding, but through the quiet sincerity of a heart devoted to goodness. Why do we believe that only titles, accomplishments, or formal recognition give us the right to matter? Zen wisdom points gently to our attachment to external validation and to our misunderstanding of how wisdom truly moves from one person to another. We imagine that teaching requires authority or reputation, when in truth the most powerful lessons are offered through presence, humility, and integrity. Think of the people who have shaped your life in small, unforgettable ways. Not through expertise, but through patience, through kindness, through simple warmth. The shopkeeper who greets you with genuine care. The stranger who offers help without hesitation. The friend who listens without trying to fix you. These people create ripples that extend far beyond their knowing. In Zen practice, this is sometimes called silent teaching, a transmission that occurs naturally when actions align with the heart's deepest values. Like the boat on the lake, we rarely see our own wake, yet it spreads behind us all the same, touching distant shores we may never visit. The Buddha said, "Thousands of candles can be lit from a single candle, and its flame is not diminished." Happiness never decreases by being shared. Each moment lived authentically becomes a teaching. Each act of compassion sends ripples across the water. Each choice to respond with awareness rather than habit reflects light back toward the unseen. Tonight, as you rest with your own life, can you sense the golden wake you are already creating? Perhaps it lives in the patience you offer a difficult loved one, the encouragement you give a weary colleague, or the quiet presence you bring to ordinary moments. The light you reflect may be illuminating paths you will never witness. Now, let us drift into another story. A story about identity, transformation, and the mystery of awareness itself. This is the tale of Trangu and the butterfly. Long ago, the Taoist sage Trangu lived simply, passing his days in gentle contemplation of nature and the deeper questions of existence. He was known for his ability to see beyond surface appearances, beyond the assumptions that cause most people to believe they understand reality. One afternoon, after wandering through bamboo groves and watching sunlight dance upon flowing water, Trangu lay down beneath a flowering tree to rest. The warmth of the sun, the whisper of wind through leaves, and the fragrance of blossoms slowly carried him into deep relaxation. As his body rested, his awareness drifted beyond ordinary waking thought and entered the quiet mystery of dreaming. In this dream, something remarkable happened. Trangu was no longer a man. He became a butterfly. His human life vanished completely from memory. He moved lightly from flower to flower, delicate wings shimmering in the light, immersed in a world of color, motion, and sensation. There was no memory of philosophy, no sense of human responsibility or reflection. There was only the experience of being a butterfly, seeing through compound eyes, guided by instinct, living fully within each moment of flight. Free from the heaviness of thought, free from worry, free from identity. This was not a man dreaming, he was a butterfly. It was butterfly existence itself, whole and unquestioned. Then, as gently as it had begun, the dream dissolved. Trangu awakened beneath the tree. The sun had shifted across the sky. His body felt solid again. His thinking mind returned, alert and curious. The dream faded, yet something remained. Rather than dismissing the experience, Trangu felt unsettled by a question that reached beyond words. Slowly sitting up, he reflected aloud, "Was I a man dreaming I was a butterfly? Or am I now a butterfly dreaming that I am a man?" This was not idle curiosity. It pointed toward something essential. If the experience of being a butterfly felt entirely real while it was happening, how could he be certain that this human experience was more real or more permanent? The Buddha taught that all conditioned existence is impermanent. Nothing we experience remains fixed. Identity itself is fluid, arising and passing like breath. Zen points gently to our habit of treating our current state of awareness as absolute. Yet waking, dreaming, deep sleep, and absorption all arise and dissolve within the same vast field of consciousness. Tranga's question invites us to look more deeply. During the dream, the butterfly was real. Upon waking, the human feels real. But which one is the truth? Or does truth lie beyond both? Consider your own shifting identities. Who are you when you dream? When you are deeply focused? When you are lost in music, prayer, or quiet stillness? Which version is the real you? Zen suggests that all these forms are like waves upon the ocean. The waves are real, yet not separate from the water. The clouds are real, yet not separate from the sky. In the same way, all identities appear within awareness, yet none are separate from it. The butterfly dream quietly reveals a deeper freedom, a reminder that transformation is natural, and that who we believe ourselves to be is never as fixed as it seems. And as these thoughts soften and fade, you may allow yourself to rest within the gentle space in which all experiences arise, drifting peacefully toward sleep. If Chuang too could become a butterfly so completely within the realm of dreaming, what does this reveal about the rigid boundaries we believe define who we are? How firm are the limits we place upon ourselves, shaped by habit, memory, and circumstance? Zen gently invites us to question how solid these inner walls truly are. Zen Master Dogen taught, "To study the way is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self." Chuang Tzu's experience points to this very truth. As we look more closely at what we call the self, our fixed ideas begin to soften and dissolve. The Buddha expressed this mystery simply: form is emptiness, emptiness is form. The man and the butterfly are both real, and yet neither possesses a permanent, independent essence. They arise briefly within awareness, authentic while present, then fade naturally to allow something new to appear. Turn your attention inward for a moment. How much of your identity rests upon roles you play, stories you tell, and memories that are always changing? If you gently released your attachment to being a certain kind of person, what would remain? Tonight, as you drift between waking and dreaming, perhaps you can remember Chuang Tzu's quiet question. Hold your sense of self lightly. Whether you experience yourself as human or butterfly, worker or dreamer, the awareness in which all these experiences appear remains open, spacious, and unchanged. As the Buddha taught, all things are impermanent. Walk on with mindful care. The man dreams of being a butterfly. The butterfly dreams of being a man. Yet the dreaming itself, the pure capacity to experience, remains as vast and free as the open sky, untouched by the forms that move within it. Now, let us turn to another story. A story that reveals the power of returning to what is real when fear threatens to overwhelm us. This is the tale of the captured warrior. In ancient Japan, during an age of unending conflict between rival clans, a skilled warrior found himself defeated in battle. Surrounded by fallen comrades, he was seized by enemy soldiers and dragged from the field. His armor was stripped away. His weapons were taken. That night, he was thrown into a narrow stone cell, the heavy wooden door closing with a sound that echoed deeply within him. As darkness settled, the warrior's mind began to race. He knew the customs of war. Tomorrow would bring interrogation, demands for information about his lord, his army, their defenses. When he refused, as honor required, torture would follow. He imagined burning iron, splintered bamboo, pain spoken of only in whispers. And after that, death. His heart thundered in his chest. His breath grew shallow and quick. Cold sweat formed on his skin despite the night air. Sleep felt impossible as his mind replayed visions of suffering again and again, like a nightmare without end. Hours passed. He paced the cell. He leaned against the cold stone. He lay upon the straw-covered floor. Nothing eased the terror that gripped him. Then, from the depths of despair, a memory surfaced. The gentle voice of his Zen teacher from the monastery where he had once trained. The words arrived with clarity, as if spoken beside him in the darkness. "Tomorrow is not real," the master had said. "It is an illusion. Only now exists." At first, the warrior resisted. How could tomorrow be unreal when its threats felt so certain? Yet as he sat quietly, allowing the teaching to settle, something shifted. He noticed his breath. In this moment he was breathing freely. He felt the straw beneath his body, rough, but bearable. He heard wind moving through trees beyond the cell, indifferent to war and fear. In this moment he was not being tortured. In this moment he was not dying. In this moment he was simply alive. The horrors that had consumed him revealed themselves as thoughts, images of a future that existed only in the mind. As this understanding deepened, a profound calm spread through his body. His breath slowed. His heart softened into a steady rhythm. And for the first time since his capture, he smiled. The master's teaching had freed him from a prison more confining than stone walls, the prison of imagined tomorrows. Within minutes, the warrior drifted into deep, peaceful sleep. The Buddha once said, "If you wish to know your past, look to your present condition. If you wish to know your future, look to your present actions." This wisdom illuminates what the warrior discovered. The only moment we ever truly inhabit is this one. Why do we torment ourselves with endless visions of what may come? Zen teaches that the mind evolved to protect us, always scanning ahead. Yet when we mistake these projections for reality, they become a source of suffering. Look gently into your own life. How much of your worry arises from imagined futures? A conversation not yet spoken, results not yet known, challenges not yet faced. These moments live mainly in thought, not in reality. The warrior's story reminds us that we can acknowledge what lies ahead without surrendering the peace that exists right now. Here, in this quiet moment, where you are safe and breathing and free to rest. Planning and preparation have their rightful place in life, yet when they harden into constant worry, they quietly steal our peace and blur our inner clarity. The mind, when caught in endless anticipation, forgets how to rest. As the Vietnamese Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh gently reminded us, because of impermanence, everything remains possible. The future is not fixed. It is shaped by countless causes and conditions, many of which lie beyond our understanding or control. A worried mind imagines that present difficulties will stretch endlessly forward, repeating themselves or growing heavier with time. Yet impermanence teaches a different truth. Nothing stays the same. The warrior sitting alone in his prison cell could not know what the next day would bring. Perhaps his lord's army would arrive. Perhaps compassion would arise in the hearts of his captors. Perhaps words spoken in negotiation would open an unexpected door. The future, unseen and fluid, held many paths. The Buddha spoke directly to this uncertainty when he taught, "The past is already gone. The future has not yet arrived. There is only this moment to be lived." This teaching does not ask us to abandon responsibility or refuse thoughtful planning. Rather, it invites us to notice where our attention habitually drifts and to guide it back, again and again, to the living richness of the present moment. In Zen practice, we cultivate what is known as beginner's mind. We meet each moment freshly, without layering it with fear, expectation, or rehearsed anxiety. When we truly inhabit the present, we often discover that it already contains the calm and clarity we were desperately seeking through worry. Thoughts of danger dissolve. The body softens. Awareness opens. Consider how the warrior's experience changed, even though nothing external had shifted. The same cell, the same walls, the same uncertain fate. Yet by returning his attention to the present moment, suffering gave way to peace. The prison did not disappear, but the inner chains fell away. This same transformation is available to us whenever anxiety or fear arises. Tonight, as your mind begins to weave stories about tomorrow, remember the captured warrior and the wisdom of his teacher. Gently ask yourself, what is actually happening right now? Notice the rhythm of your breathing. Feel the surface beneath your body. Sense the temperature of the air touching your skin. These simple experiences anchor you in reality rather than imagination. As the Buddha taught, do not dwell in the past. Do not chase the future. Place your awareness fully in this present moment. Within this teaching lies the key to both the warrior's prison and our own release. As we continue our quiet journey through Zen wisdom, let us now turn to a story about a truth so fundamental that it often remains unseen. This is the story of the fish and the ocean. In the vast blue depths of the Pacific, where sunlight softened as it filtered through layers of green and indigo, a young fish swam restlessly through familiar waters. Coral gardens swayed gently in the current. Schools of silver fish moved as one, like flowing metal. Far above, the pulse of waves echoed faintly. Yet despite this abundance, the young fish felt unsettled, troubled by a question that would not leave his mind. One day, he approached an ancient sea turtle, whose shell bore the marks of countless journeys across storms and calm seas alike. With sincere confusion, the young fish asked, "Elder, I hear the other creatures speak of something called the ocean. They speak with such reverence, as though it is the most important thing in existence. But I have searched everywhere and I cannot find it. What is this ocean they speak of?" The turtle's eyes, deep and patient like still tidal pools, rested on the young fish with gentle amusement. "Little one," the turtle replied in a voice shaped by time, "the ocean is what surrounds you in every direction, at every moment." The young fish darted left and right, swam upward toward the light, then downward toward the sandy floor. "I see nothing but water, plants, rocks, and other fish," he said. "Where is this ocean? Why can't I see it?" The turtle settled into a bed of soft kelp, sensing that this lesson would take time. "Of course you cannot see it," he explained kindly. "The ocean is both inside you and outside you. You were born in it. You breathe through it. You are nourished by it. One day you will return to it. It flows through your gills and around your body as naturally as your scales cover your skin. It is so much a part of you that it has become invisible." The young fish grew quiet. Something vast and intimate stirred within him, something that had always been present but unnamed. "You mean this water?" he asked softly. "This is the ocean?" "Yes," the turtle replied. "You have never been separate from it. Not for a single moment of your life." As the Buddha observed, all conditioned things are impermanent. Strive on with awareness. This ancient story reflects our own relationship with the Tao, the fundamental flow of existence that permeates everything yet often escapes our notice. Like the fish who cannot see the ocean, we live immersed in the sacred while failing to recognize it, precisely because it is too close, too constant, too essential to appear as something separate. Why is the Tao so difficult to perceive? Zen teachings suggest that we habitually search for the extraordinary while overlooking the ordinary. We imagine that spiritual truth must be dramatic or mystical, separate from daily life. We look for miracles in distant places, while missing the quiet presence in our morning breath, in the simple act of awareness itself. The Tao expresses itself in everything: the turning of seasons, the rhythm of sleep and waking, the steady beat of the heart, the way thoughts arise and dissolve. It is the same pattern shaping galaxies and unfolding fern leaves, manifesting at every scale of existence. Throughout your day, you may glimpse this underlying flow without recognizing it. In the way traffic organizes itself without a single controller. In how conversations find their own rhythm. In how your body breathes without instruction. In how solutions sometimes appear when you stop forcing them. These are expressions of the Tao creating order from apparent chaos. Zen teacher Alan Watts once said, "Trying to define yourself is like trying to bite your own teeth." The Tao is similar. It cannot be grasped or contained because we are not observers of it, we are expressions of it. To try to understand it conceptually is like a fish trying to leave the ocean to examine it. This does not mean the Tao is abstract or distant. It is the intelligence coordinating trillions of cells within your body. It is the awareness in which all sensations appear. It is the life force animating everything from towering trees to microscopic life. In Chinese philosophy, Tao means the way. Not a path toward a distant goal, but the way reality unfolds through us, moment by moment, without needing our control. Laozi wrote, "The Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao." And yet we use words, knowing they only point beyond themselves. Tonight, as you feel your breath moving gently in and out without effort, can you sense the Tao expressing itself through this simple miracle? Can you recognize the same intelligence here that turns the planets and guides the seasons? The Buddha taught, "Look within. You are the Buddha. You are no more separate from existence than a wave is separate from the sea." In realizing this, the search ends and living begins. Now, let us turn to a story about faith and self-doubt. This is the story of the wishing tree. A poor man walked slowly through a dense forest, shoulders bent beneath unpaid debts, strained relationships, and abandoned dreams. Sunlight filtered softly through the leaves above, but his mind was too heavy to notice. Each step echoed with worry. Exhausted, he leaned against what seemed to be an ordinary tree. As he rested, thirst arose. "I wish I had something to drink," he whispered. Instantly, a cup of cool, clear water appeared in his hand. He stared in disbelief, then drank. It was exactly what he needed. Hungry now, he wished for food. A simple meal appeared, fresh and nourishing. Amazed, he ate slowly. "My wishes are being granted," he said in wonder. Excitement grew. He wished for a beautiful home, and one appeared nearby. He wished for help, and kind servants arrived. He wished for companionship, and a loving woman stood beside him. But then doubt surfaced. "This can't be real," he said. "People like me aren't this lucky." As the words left his mouth, everything vanished. He stood alone once more beneath an ordinary tree. The Buddha taught that we are shaped by our thoughts. With our thoughts, we create the world. This story reveals the power of belief and the quiet destruction caused by doubt. We often trust our limitations more than our possibilities. We walk away from blessings because they conflict with our familiar story of struggle. Zen teaches us to notice when we dismiss goodness simply because it feels unfamiliar. Tonight, as you reflect on your day, ask gently, where might you have walked away from your own wishing tree? And as you rest now, allow this question to soften, dissolve, and fade into sleep. As the Buddha once observed, thousands of candles may be lit from a single flame, and the life of that flame is not diminished. Happiness does not decrease when it is shared. It quietly multiplies. In the same way, the wishing tree does not lose its magic by fulfilling wishes. Its purpose is completed through giving. And our own capacity to receive life's blessings is not reduced by acceptance. It is gently expanded. Let us now enter a story about choice, responsibility, and the quiet power that rests within each moment of our lives. This is the story of the young man and the bird. There was once a clever young student who had grown restless with his teacher's calm and seemingly effortless wisdom. Every question was met with a response that felt simple, yet complete. Over time, the student became convinced that the old master merely spoke in riddles to appear profound. Determined to expose what he believed was empty pretense, the young man decided to set a trap. After days of careful thought, he believed he had found the perfect test. One morning, he caught a small sparrow in the garden. The tiny bird trembled softly in his cupped hands, its fragile heart beating quickly against his palms. He hid the bird behind his back and approached his teacher, who sat quietly in the morning light, reading ancient texts as the sun warmed the courtyard. "Master," the student called out, barely containing his excitement, "I have a question that will test your great wisdom." The teacher looked up slowly, his eyes gentle and patient. He had seen this mixture of confidence and challenge many times before. He understood that the desire to question authority was part of the student's own unfolding. "Please," the teacher said calmly, "ask your question." Stepping closer, the student asked, "Master, I hold a small bird in my hands. Tell me, is this bird alive or dead?" The student felt certain of his cleverness. If the teacher answered alive, he would crush the bird and reveal its lifeless body. If the teacher answered dead, he would open his hands and let the bird fly away. Either answer, he believed, would expose the teacher's wisdom as mere guessing. He waited eagerly. The teacher remained silent for a long moment, not attempting to look behind the student's back. His gaze seemed to pass beyond the young man, as if seeing something deeper than the trick itself. Then, with a soft smile filled with understanding, the teacher spoke. "The answer," he said gently, "is in your hands." The student froze. In those few simple words, his elaborate plan dissolved. The teacher had refused the false choice and instead revealed a deeper truth. The outcome had never depended on the teacher's insight. It had always rested entirely with the student. The young man felt the bird's heartbeat again, light and rapid. A sudden clarity arose within him. This was not only about the bird. It was about every moment of his life. The power to choose life or harm, compassion or cruelty, awareness or ignorance, was always in his hands. Slowly, he brought his hands forward and opened them. The bird rested for a brief moment, then lifted its wings and disappeared into the open sky. The Buddha taught that we are what we think. From our thoughts, our world is shaped. This teaching reveals the responsibility that accompanies awareness. We are not passive observers of life. We are participants, shaping our experience through every choice we make. Why do we so often search outside ourselves for answers that can only be found within? Zen teachings remind us that we tend to seek authority, hoping someone else will decide for us. Yet, true wisdom cannot be handed from one person to another. It must be discovered through direct living. The student believed he was testing his teacher. In truth, he was being shown his own power. Each moment presents a choice, shaping not only circumstances, but character and direction. Consider your own life. How often do you wait for permission, approval, or certainty before acting? How often do you believe you have no choice, when in truth, something precious rests quietly in your hands? The bird represents every opportunity entrusted to us. Our relationships, our integrity, our capacity to care or to harm. The result does not depend on perfect conditions or flawless guidance, but on how we choose to respond. A true teacher does not give answers. A true teacher points us back to ourselves. Zen teacher Charlotte Joko Beck said, "We are always in choice, even when we think we are not." Awareness itself carries responsibility. To be conscious is to be choosing. The Buddha taught, "The mind is everything. What you think, you become." Every thought, every intention is like the bird in the student's hands, an opportunity to create freedom or suffering. Tonight, as you rest, notice where in your life you feel powerless. Gently ask yourself what choice still remains. Not as a burden, but as a quiet dignity. No one walks the path for us, and no one needs to. The answer has always been in our hands. Let us now turn gently toward another story, one about trusting the current of life itself. This is the story of the Crystal River. In the depths of a great crystal-clear river, where water flowed like liquid light, there lived a village of small creatures. Above them, the current moved steadily, carrying the wisdom of distant mountains and faraway seas. Young and old, rich and poor, all had made their homes along the soft, sandy riverbed. Every creature lived close to the bottom, gripping stones, roots, and fallen branches with all their strength. For countless generations, holding on had been their way of survival. From the moment they were born, each creature was taught to cling. "Hold tightly," the elders would say. "The current is dangerous. It will carry you away to places unknown. Safety lies in staying exactly where you are. And so, life became an endless act of grasping. But among them was one small creature who grew tired of this constant effort. Day after day, he watched the current flow above him, moving with quiet strength and graceful purpose. While others complained about sore limbs and the exhaustion of never letting go, he wondered what it might feel like to trust the water itself. One morning he spoke aloud. "I am weary of clinging. Though I cannot see where the current leads, I trust that it knows its way. I will let go and allow it to carry me. For if I continue holding on, I fear I will die of boredom before I ever truly live." The others gasped in fear. "Fool," they cried. "If you release your grip, the current will smash you against the rocks. You will be broken and destroyed far sooner than boredom could ever harm you." Yet the small creature had already decided. With one last glance at those he had known all his life, he loosened his grasp and released the familiar stone. At once, the current seized him. Just as the others had warned, he was hurled across the rocky bottom. His body struck stone after stone, each impact bringing sharp pain he had never known while clinging in place. And yet, as he continued to surrender, resisting the urge to grab hold again, something extraordinary occurred. Gradually, the water lifted him away from the dangerous bottom. The tumbling slowed, then ceased altogether. The rocks could no longer reach him. Now he moved within the current itself, no longer resisting its direction, but flowing as one with its motion. As he traveled downstream, creatures in distant regions stared in disbelief. One of their own kind moved freely, seemingly flying through the water with effortless grace. "A miracle!" they cried. "A savior has come among us." Hearing their voices, the flowing creature felt compassion. "I am no savior," he called gently. "The river lifts us all, if only we dare to let go. Our true work is not clinging to the bottom, but trusting this journey." But the creatures only cried louder, tightening their grips even more. When he vanished around a bend in the river, they began weaving stories of the miraculous being who had appeared and disappeared, never realizing that what they praised was simply trust in motion. The Buddha taught that we only lose what we cling to. This paradox rests at the heart of human suffering. We grasp for security, believing safety lies in control, yet it is this grasping that creates our pain. From early life, we learn that the known feels safe and the unknown feels dangerous. This conditioning becomes an obstacle when it prevents growth. We imagine we can stop change by holding tightly, forgetting that life itself is movement. To resist it is to exhaust ourselves against a force far greater than our will. Consider where you are clinging now. Perhaps to a role that no longer fits, a relationship that has changed, a version of yourself that feels too small. The current will flow regardless. The question is whether we resist it or discover grace within surrender. Water does not fight the mountainside. It finds its way. When we move with life rather than against it, effort becomes ease. Tonight, as you rest, what might you be ready to release? A worry, a memory, a fixed idea of who you must be. Can you sense the gentle current of this moment and trust where it carries you? The Buddha taught, let go of what is past. Let go of what may come. Let go even of what is now. In this letting go, we discover that the current we feared is the same force that carries us home. Let us now turn to another story, one that reveals the difference between knowledge and true awareness. This is the tale of the teacher who believed he had arrived. After many years of devoted study, a monk named Tenno received recognition as a teacher. His understanding was praised, his meditation steady, his guidance approved. Confident in his attainment, he traveled to meet the renowned Master Nanin, hoping for confirmation of his realization. It was a rainy day when he arrived. He placed his clogs and umbrella neatly on the porch and entered the temple. After greetings were exchanged, Nanin asked calmly, "When you entered, did you place your umbrella to the left of your shoes or to the right?" Tenno searched his memory and found only emptiness. He did not know. Nanin smiled softly. "Then your awareness is not yet complete," he said. "True awakening attends to every moment." In that instant, Tenno understood. Enlightenment was not something achieved and possessed. It was presence, renewed again and again, even in placing shoes. And so his true practice began. As the Buddha said, "If you wish to know your future, look closely at what you are doing now." What this story gently reveals is that true spiritual growth is not measured by rare moments of insight or dramatic realizations, but by the quality of attention we bring to the simplest parts of our lives. We often assume that awakening exists only in special conditions, formal meditation sessions, or elevated states of awareness. Yet Zen teaches that awakening lives precisely here, in our ability to be fully present with whatever is unfolding now. Whether we are sitting in silence or quietly placing an umbrella beside our shoes, the opportunity for awareness is the same. Tenno's misunderstanding is one shared by many sincere practitioners. He had learned to be mindful during scheduled practice, yet his awareness faded during ordinary moments. He could sit in meditation with clarity, but move through daily tasks unconsciously. This separation between spiritual time and ordinary time is one of the most subtle obstacles on the path. We begin to believe that awareness is something we switch on during meditation and switch off during routine activities. But authentic practice allows no such division. Awareness is meant to flow through everything. Consider your own day. How present are you while brushing your teeth, preparing a drink, or putting on your shoes? Do these moments receive your attention, or are they performed on autopilot while the mind wanders elsewhere? The distance between formal practice and daily living often shows us exactly where our awareness is still asleep. Zen Master Dogen taught that practice and awakening are not separate. This means that the consciousness you bring to any moment is both the path and the destination. There is no waiting for enlightenment to arrive later. Each moment is already complete. Nanin's question was never about umbrellas or shoes. It was a mirror. It revealed whether Tenno's awareness had reached into the quiet habits of daily life. Could he be present when no one was watching, when nothing seemed important, when no spiritual label was attached to the action? The Buddha taught that mindfulness is the path to the deathless, and heedlessness the path to suffering. True aliveness is found in presence, and presence can be practiced anywhere, at any time, in the most ordinary of actions. Look gently at your own life. Where do you reserve attention for certain moments while letting others pass unnoticed? This is not about forcing focus or becoming rigid. It is about recognizing that the same gentle awareness cultivated in meditation can soften and illuminate every part of living. Often, the most ordinary moments carry the greatest potential. When we meditate, we expect to be aware. But when we perform routine tasks, we discover whether our practice is alive or confined to special circumstances. In Zen temples, Washing dishes is treated with the same care as chanting sutras. Sweeping the floor is no less sacred than studying philosophy. Not because these tasks are special in themselves, but because awareness makes them so. Thich Nhat Hanh taught that washing dishes is not merely to have clean dishes, but to live fully in each moment. This was the heart of Nanin's teaching. Every action is an invitation to presence. Tenno's years of training had strengthened his awareness when he chose to be aware. But he had not yet learned to let awareness become natural, effortless, continuous. This is the difference between spiritual knowledge and spiritual maturity. It is easy to be mindful when we remember to be mindful. The deeper practice is allowing awareness to remain even when we forget ourselves. When presence becomes the ground of our being, not an activity we perform. Tonight, as you complete the small rituals that close your day, changing clothes, setting things aside for tomorrow, preparing for rest, can you bring the same gentle attention you might offer formal meditation? Can awareness enter these quiet moments without effort? The Buddha reminded us that every moment is a teacher, and every place a classroom. The umbrella beside the shoes became Tenno's teacher, showing him exactly where his practice could deepen. Often the most profound lessons arrive disguised as simple questions, asked by those wise enough to know that awakening is not found by escaping the ordinary, but by discovering the sacred within it. Now, as our time together gently comes to a close, notice how your body feels. Notice the calm that has settled. This peace is not something distant or borrowed. It has always been within you, waiting for attention. The Buddha taught that what we think, we become. Each story tonight has helped quiet the mind and remind you of something simple and true. You do not need to control everything to rest. You only need to loosen your grip. All of these stories point toward the same understanding. Rest arises when we stop fighting the mind. Clarity appears when we stop trying so hard to solve life. Even if you do not remember every story, something has already shifted. Tomorrow, when the mind becomes busy again, this calm will still be available to you. You do not need to search for it. You only need to pause. These are not just ancient tales. They are gentle reminders that peace is always possible, even in the middle of life. As you drift toward sleep, trust that you already have everything you need. Peace is not complicated. It is as simple as breathing and remembering that, in this moment, you are safe. Sleep well. Thank you for walking this quiet path with Silent Monk.